Good evening, everyone. Hope you all are doing well. Let's go ahead and take a look and see what's going on with Bitcoin. This is one of the classic patterns of uncertainty. Looks like we are breaking to the downside for right now. All right, so here's the thing, guys. This could either, break up or break down. We're obviously, we started kind of breaking out of this. You could even say that we were kind of more so in this flag. We broke out, we came back, we're retesting the top of it. It's either going to break up or break down. This could be a complex head and shoulders, or this could be an inverted head and shoulders, as you can see here. So there's two different styles to this, right? Let's go ahead and take a look at our daily, though. Kind of rewind this back, even up, I would say up to the weekly for right now, kind of see where we're at. So taking a look at the weekly, I'm going to get rid of this here. Get rid of these drawings. All right, so we got up to our high about 79,973, 968. Actually, 79,968 is our high. We traded down a little bit, so our low being at the 786, around 76,770, around it's basically 76,639 to be exact. So the true question is right now, guys, is whether or not we're going to basically be able to stay above the 78,751 support level, close our daily candle above it, and then keep on moving up into this 80,500-ish area. That's the main question that I have for right now. Like I've told you guys before, when you have Monday pumping out the gate, it's not the best sign. We are in a very bullish environment, though, so there's a potential, especially if we can close this daily candle in about 4 minutes above 78,751, there's a potential that we can get that move up, that continuation up, at least through Tuesday. So I wouldn't be surprised if Tuesday we come up here and visit 80,491 and figure out what we're going to do. So here's the thing. As far as this week goes, taking a look at the weekly candle, this is just our second week after a very expansive move up. So I would not be surprised if this is a compression candle. It could definitely be an expansion, but just don't be surprised if this does end up being somewhat of a compression candle with maybe a strong wick to the downside. We don't know yet. Now, worst case scenario is that this is going to be a tweezer top. Maybe we make some sort of bullish flaggish pattern here, to the downside potentially up until, maybe the second week of September, because this is the last week of August. I know that I believe, based off of what we have here, it does look like we basically are going to start next week, partly in August, but mainly in September. So next week could definitely be bearish. This week could be bearish. So we could basically kind of have two bearish candles, something like this, where we had a pump, two bearish candles, and then we get that continuation up. So some sort of like a bullish flag pattern with two candles to the downside. So that is a potential if we were to get a bearish week. Especially it's going to invoke a lot of people to go short, maybe head down into the mid 70s to the low 70s, and then get that expansive move up after that. So that I would not be surprised with either. For right now, I have to say that because we're pumping, for Monday, it is sketching me out. So that's not the best sign, right? Now, if we close above 78,751 within the next 2 minutes, that's going to be a decent sign for Tuesday to have that continuation pump, but nothing is guaranteed, right? All right, so take a look at the 10-hour. Kind of had this, bullish flaggish pattern that started to break up. Nothing major, though. No huge expansive move. I mean, I guess you could call this candle quite expansive, but nothing to really write home about. Not like what we saw last week. Now, on the 4-hour, this is kind of nothing really. You do have some bear div here. I think that was pointed out. So, this swings up, right? You got this swings up while this swings down. So you do have some bear div on the 4-hour, which is not great. But it's not really playing out just yet, right? So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not that will play out. You do have a little bit of your stochastics reset. However, you're about to get that cross, on your stochastics where the blue line crosses over the orange, which could indicate a downward move. So just be cautious, guys. I mean, it's very difficult to tell at this time. We're getting close, I believe, to the top of the pump for at least right now, before we get into some sort of consolidation period for a while. But like I said, it's going to be very difficult to know. This 1 hour can be one of two things. It can either be a bull flag here, right? You kind of have this swing high here, which is sketchy, but it didn't break down. But you kind of have something like this, right? And, you know, in a premium, this would normally break down. So what would this potentially go to here? So if I were to take the measured move, and let's grab this, move this up. So this takes us almost to 80,005. And then to the downside, if I were to duplicate this, this takes us down to about that 706, which is around 77,148, which is realistic and in line with the 76, 770, 786 retracement that I have here. I'm ideally thinking that we're probably going to eventually take out, and might even dive deeper, but we're probably going to take out these wicks right here, you know, and get into 76, 491, maybe take a bounce off of the top of this order block right here, this mini one. So that would be ideal. But really, it's going to depend on what price wants to do, right? If it wants to get one more high in, it could basically... Right now, it's invoking a lot of shorts, people thinking that we can't breach 80,000. That's going to be our major area of resistance. But imagine if it comes up, takes them out, and goes to 80,005, and then just free falls, right? That's another potential that we could have. And I think based off of liquidity, that's kind of something that I was seeing as well. One thing I wanted to do before we dive into liquidity itself, and actually we got that daily candle close. Let's see where we closed at. So we did close at 78,950, so that is above that 78,751. So definitely in a bullish sentiment right now. But one thing I wanted to take a look at, guys, and we're actually going to go and migrate into a different chart, is I wanted to basically see, you know, premium and discount where we were at. So let's go ahead and move out to the weekly. And let's take a look at some fixed volume profiles here. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this. And let's see if I can pull from here to here. So that pulls us into the major zone, right? So you basically have, you know, this is kind of your active zone that we're in right now. Your point of control is down here at 62,880. So this is your bigger range, okay? However, there's also a smaller range, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to pull it, but basically we can use a fib retracement tool in case. I'm going to draw it out though. So we have this smaller range really from right there to right there. That was our previous consolidation range. So as you can see, guys, you know, and actually it probably kind of aligns with this down here, I would say. But really, we kind of are dealing in two ranges, okay? So our very first range, and I'm going to make these, let's make these kind of look nicer, maybe a purplish color. All right, let's use purple for these here. All right, so we have our previous, you know, 2024 consolidation range, which we've talked about. And then we have our overarching larger, you know, fixed volume profile range that we're dealing with currently, okay? So here's the thing. When we were in this range, right, we were dealing with this, okay? So basically our midway point being, you know, 63,648. We did trade below that, right? So up here we were in a premium. We even got up into, you know, back into this upper range here. We dropped back down into this previous consolidation range, right? Come, you know, June-ish time frame. And then we traded below the midway point within this range, right? Hit a 786. And then now we got a strong candle basically closing above our previous range. So now that we're outside of this consolidation range, now we're in this larger range. So what does this range entail? Well, this range right here, let's get rid of this for right now. Let's see where we're at within this larger range. So that's going to take us from this bottom all the way to this top. All right. So look at this. Look at how amazing price action is, guys. I just pulled this, right? And I pulled it from this bottom, which we know from the visual, you know, this volume profile, right? This purple line down here at 55,920-ish area, all the way up to about 97,364. Look at what this week did. Look at it bounced off of the midway point of this larger range. So we were in the discount, right, of this bigger range around the 786. We were hovering, slightly dropped below the 786, but we were hovering around the 786, and then we just skyrocketed up past the, you know, midway point of this range, right, the 0.5. So now we're above the midway point, and now we're trading, you know, we bounced down. We tested the midway point as a point of support, and now we're trading above it. So technically, within this range now, we are in a premium. So what exactly does that mean? Well, because we are slightly in a premium, we're not by much in a premium, but we're slightly in a premium, we could potentially expect one more major move up. And honestly, one of the biggest areas that I'm going to be really targeting is going to be yearly open. I want to see price, basically test it. And I think that we have a good opportunity to test it sooner rather than later. So if we get this expansive candle up for the remainder of the month of August, I would not be surprised if even this week we test 87,638, to be honest with you. That's going to be your yearly open, right? And we know for a fact that the yearly open is a magnet for price, especially we take out this double top right here. So don't be surprised if once we do take out this double top, if it's not done yet, and it actually comes and visits yearly open. That's 87,638 right there. Now, when if we do test yearly open, don't be surprised, right? If we do somewhat, let me see if I can pull out my arrow tool here, see if I can find it. I might have to actually we can use this path tool here. But I would not be surprised, right, if maybe we come up here, we do a little bit of a drop, we come test yearly open, and maybe we have to build out some sort of a right shoulder of some sort. Maybe we come down here, we test way down here, kind of trend out, right, and then come way back up here. This could be a potential, right? And unfortunately, this actually takes us way too far. It's not going to probably take that long. Let me go ahead and let me see if I can redraw this to where it's more realistic from a timing perspective. So maybe we come up here, we go straight, for the weekly. Maybe, first week of September, let's see, second week. So it's possible that we somewhat do something like this here. Maybe we come back down, go up, come back down, and then maybe we start to really skyrocket for November, December timeframe. Something like that. That would potentially be possible as well. So keep that in mind. So maybe we do something like this where we build out this right shoulder, right? If this is an inverted head and shoulders pattern, we build out somewhat of a smaller right shoulder and then we launch. But I do think that the yearly is going to provide some sort of resistance based off of my own experience. And I know that the yearly, the monthly, those are all magnets for price. So keep that in mind, but just know and look at how amazing, like I said, our range is basically that we are now right above the midway point of the bigger range. So we did test it this week, and this is a very bullish sign. So we could definitely get one more expansive move up and then get that retracement come beginning of September. Maybe we get a retracement, we get a slight pullback. Maybe September just kind of chops out, and then October we finally get that last drop, and we just come up from there. But I do think, guys, this is a potential that our bottom is in. It would align kind of timing-wise. I know that I was saying that October would be great for us to see an actual bottom. But you just got to think that if we did wipe this out in October, we're really going to have to see a very strong, bounce at that point. Like it would have to be extremely violent, more violent than this candle to get us back into the range that we need to be in. So more so for me, now that I'm, looking at this, I'm thinking more so this is probably going to build out some sort of inverted head and shoulders like pattern maybe, and then get to the upside. Something like that, okay? So just keep that in mind. I wanted to go over this with you guys because I know I mentioned it earlier, but I wanted to really take a step back and take a look at the weekly from a bigger picture perspective as far as our range, visual, range volume profile goes. All right, so that being said, guys, let's go ahead and take a look at our liquidity. As far as levels go, first target would be 80,000 basically 80,500 if we get that move to the upside. You're going to want to see that you're able to consolidate. You can basically get to 82,429, then 84,151. I mean, these are all levels that are in play. To the downside, you're going to want to see 78,751 hold. So 78,751 has to hold for the daily. Then obviously 78,114, then down to 77,421. And then finally, I did put this on here. This is going to be your Monday midnight open, which is 76,975. So this blue line is marked definitely because this is going to be your Monday midnight open. So we definitely want to keep this. We can test it bullishly, right? We can use it as support, but we want to see 76,975 hold for right now. All right, that being said, let's go ahead and take a real quick look at our liquidity here and see where that's at. So let me go ahead and reload this page. We'll take a look at our 4-hour and then we'll dive in from there. So taking a look at our 4-hour, here's the thing. You kind of have this ascending triangle. Obviously, it looks like it could potentially break out. It's not really a pattern that I like to see in bullish times. So if this were to break down, right, you kind of look down here and it's basically can visit almost the top of this, liquidity area. And that takes us up to about 74.5 to 75K, what we've been targeting, right? So just know that we are in kind of an ascending triangle and those can break down majority of the time, especially we are slightly in a premium. The only thing that's benefiting us right now is we did test the midway point bullishly and we were able to bounce off of it. So just keep that in mind. Taking a look at the 1 hour. So the 1 hour, let's see. Hopefully it pulls up its liquidity soon here. Okay, there we go. I just, for some reason, it had it set at a weird filter here. But let's take a look and see what we're looking at here. So the 1 hour looks like 100x. We can drop down either to 78,349, or we can get that pump up to about 79,386 before we have issues. And that's probably going to be a bearish 786 from the very top. Taking a look at your 50x, you don't really have any bridges, unfortunately, guys. So there is a potential we get the move up. Maybe we get up to about 79.4 and then we get that drop. Let's take a look and see where that bearish 786 would be. So if I were to pull this, yeah, so I mean, if I pulled from this kind of higher low right here down to the bottom of this wick, right, that we had, that basically alludes to the fact that we're going to take out up to 79.4 and then maybe get that drop, okay? So just be well aware that we could get the pump for right now for Tuesday. Maybe not get all the way up here, but we'll get to 79.4 and then maybe, free fall for a bit from there. And what I mean by free fall is, there's a potential that we could come down here or, maybe get into that 75, 74, 5-ish range down here. Okay. But those are some areas that I'm going to be targeting. Now, if we can get above this, consolidate, we have a chance of potentially getting into the 80,500-ish area, 81,000-ish area. Those are all going to be potential candidates for our move up. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at the 15-minute. So the 15-minute still in that kind of that symmetrical triangle pattern. That's not really the best for the bulls, as we know. Your 50x is alluding to the fact that we're going to probably drop. Your 100x, you do still have some above. Your 50x shows some red above. It's just we don't have the bridges to really get us up there. We have some to get us into that 79.4-ish area, but nothing really above that to drive us into the 80,000 range. Okay. All right. Taking a look at the 5-minute. So the 5-minute definitely kind of getting somewhat of a, I would say, it's kind of looking round to toppy. I got to be honest with you. This does not look very bullish to me. From a timing perspective, I would like to see us drop for us to maybe reverse come Tuesday morning when New York session opens, that type of thing. But for right now, there's a potential that we could possibly kind of fall off tonight, okay, and get into this area. All right, let's take a real quick look at our order book here through open market. It is showing that we do have a couple of orders to the upside to about 79,886 to 80,000. That is going to surpass this area that we talked about, so definitely is a possibility, but just be aware of the risk with that. We do have a lot more orders building up to the downside, so you have a lot more down here. You could be using 77,675 potentially as support, so that would basically allude to the fact that we are going to come down into here potentially. Not sure why we would bounce in the middle of this. It possibly could be aligned with the 786. Let's take a look. So if I were to pull from here to here, yeah, so if I pulled from this local low upwards, let's see, where would this be? 77,675. So I'm kind of cherry picking this right now, but I just want to see where that pull would be. Basically from this wick down here all the way up to our high would give you that 77,637, which kind of aligns with this area, potentially to be used as support. So just know that we can maybe dive into this a little bit and get that bullish 786 retracement before we start moving up, maybe invoking a few more shorts. But that's kind of what I'm seeing as far as the order book goes. It is showing that there could be a potential pull to the downside, so be aware of that. Taking a look at our simple map finally, let's see what levels we can maybe identify. All right. So levels to identify, you have 78,330 as your first area of support. You lose that, you get to about 77,760, and then to about 77,100. Worst case scenario, it looks like we could drop to 76,470 and then even continue there to about 75,510. But for right now, we do have quite a few support levels to keep in mind before we can move down that low. To the upside, you're going to be looking to basically breach 80,000. That's going to be your biggest point of resistance. You do have to get over the 79,200-ish hump, in order to continue your move up. You have one more place around 79,860, but in reality, the biggest hurdle is going to be that 80,000-ish area like we've been talking about. And as far as your swing time frames go, let's take a look at that. You have your first area 78,330, you lose that, you go to 77,760, then to 77,130, and further down on to 76,470, and then, again to the 75,000 range. Getting you to the upside, you're going to be looking at around 79,980 to 80,000 as they're your strongest areas of resistance. However, you're still going to need to pass through 79,200-ish area, followed by 79,860 before you can get up there. So those are some additional areas of potential resistance prior to getting up higher. All right, guys, that being said, that is what I have for you for tonight. It does look like it is going to be more bearish, in my opinion, than bullish, possibly getting that rollover. But again, the market's going to do what it's going to do, and it can basically flip on you at any given time. All right, as usual, guys, if you guys want to get Trading Different and its tools, really helps you with your trades. I've made some huge trades based off of it, and I've won pretty much almost all of them based off of my 76 levels. And, obviously looking at liquidity and our order book, those are all multiple levels of confluence to really help you with your trading. But feel free to use my code Sean to get 10% off of your entire order and to get access to this amazing tool suite where you can look at liquidity on all types of assets, even ranging into the metals as well as stock ETFs, as well as Bitcoin and other crypto assets too. And then you also get the trend indicator, you get the high frequency chart, you get the simple map, you get everything you need to really structure a plan as to how you're going to trade for the day. All right, guys, that is what I have for you for now. I will be back later on tomorrow morning. I will talk to you all later, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Take care.